here to the Saturday Morning Sports. Me, Dave Long, Sean Sendell, and Robbie are here. We're talking about the World Cup. I want to finish on one point, and then we're going to get to baseball. Here's the question. We talked about the television audience and an enthusiasm that swept over the country for this event like never before. Is that fair to say that happened?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So who gets the bigger bump? Is it soccer and it takes a big step forward, or is it the World Cup in the way that, or is soccer going to be like track and field is in non-Olympic years?
I don't think track and field is an attraction in the Olympics. Maybe for you, but I don't tune into track and field.
It's a big event in the Olympics.
Robbie?
In the Summer Olympics,
I watch.
It's a big event.
I'm pretty
in the
big
Summer
into
Olympics.
it. Yeah.
I mean,
what do you
guess,
watch? Swimming?
I mean, I don't know. I'll watch big names. I like watching Usain Bolt run.
Bolt, exactly.
But like, I'm not going to watch a generic heat. I don't care.
My point is that the only thing you can watch in the World Cup is soccer. So all I'm saying is, but even if you don't like track and field, you're watching Usain Bolt, and you don't watch him the rest of the year, the other 3 years, right?
Sure.
So what I'm saying is, what is this enthusiasm? Is it for this festival and tremendous event, the same way the Super Bowl draws 100 million people to watch it, and it doesn't get 100 million people watching football, NFL football during a regular season? Or is it soccer has really taken this gigantic leap forward in the way that everybody thought the women, when they won in Pasadena, there's been 2 leagues that have gone out of business already, professional leagues. So it didn't really get that gigantic bump, right?
Right. I think it's both. More so World Cup, but I also think soccer is going to have a slight bump as well. So the World Cup in 4 years you'll see another increase in viewership because it will have that larger increased bump. But I think soccer as a whole is getting a slow increase as well.
I agree. I think it's more soccer though than the World Cup. The World Cup's always been there. It's always in the back.
Yeah,
of
but
people's
it
mind.
wasn't drawing the kind of audiences it's drawn in the U.S.
Here's the thing, though: there's a changing generation with the millennial, and I think they have their interest span is getting shorter and shorter.
Well, plus they grew up playing, so
So it's a 90-minute game, really, right? So you're in and out, and it's not a baseball where you have to wait 4 hours now because of the way these pitching changes happen.
Yeah, baseball's it's tough to think. If the clicker wasn't invented, baseball would be tough to for me to watch.
Yeah. Maybe you'd be working out more, getting up off your couch, walking over, having to go sit back down.
No, I wouldn't watch it. I might go to games. I follow it, but I wouldn't watch it if I had to. If I didn't have a clicker.
I'll tell you what. Football. I switch the channel all the time during all those breaks.
Right.
There's long breaks during football where
it's awful.
Yeah, the clicker's important. So it's hard to do it in hockey.
Right.
If you're really watching the game, right?
Right. Yeah.
So anyway, I think it's the World Cup got the biggest bounce. I think that's what people are following. I think there's more soccer people. I agree with you, but I think it's more people following this event in the way they follow the Olympics. And then I think the interest level recedes. I don't think the Revolution are going to all of a sudden get like 30,000 people a game, whatever it is, however many they get.
But I think that will give soccer a slight.
Yeah,
World
I don't think
Cup,
it hurts it.
A bigger bump. Soccer, I think it's a slight climb.
I guess what I'm saying is I don't know that this is the 1958 NFL championship game, which people look back on. And maybe they will in 20 years look back on this and say that was the same thing. NFL connected after 40 years. NFL was around since 1920. It was behind most of that time. Baseball, horse racing, boxing, tiddlywinks, and college football. It was behind. So, but that game is, traced back to where things really capture the imagination. So I think the World Cup, this is for the World Cup. I don't know that much.
No, I think you're looking at something that could happen in 4 years, maybe even 8, as they continue to get better. You saw some young talent for the team.
That's my point. I think they got to be better for soccer to capture.
If they make 4 years, say they make the championship, then that's the moment you're looking for.
The women won,
But unfortunately, men's athletics holds much more cachet.
Except for one thing, women have been playing soccer. For the people who are now playing soccer, little girls have been playing soccer. Grown women have been playing soccer just as much as the guys from the exact same age, right?
Yeah, I would look at it and say they have they chose a sport because there's no professional league that's going to pay them millions upon millions of dollars at the end. Like the men can choose baseball, basketball, football because they know they're making millions. So they choose not to play soccer. For the women, playing professional baseball or softball isn't going to get you anywhere.
Well, you could play WNBA. Yeah, but that money's relative. I mean, that's the place to go because there's money.
But if you're a young kid who's really athletic and you say, okay, which sport is the best option for me to take my skills and make a lot of money?
When you're really young,
yeah,
parents may do that. I wanted to play every sport. I would never specialize in a sport.
I wanted to play too, so.
I would never specialize in a sport, and I think it's the worst thing for players to do, personally.
I agree.
All right, let's go to let's get some baseball in this thing.
Number 2.
The midway point of the baseball season has come and gone, and the Red Sox are at a crossroad, and the question is, what is your answer? Is it time to pack it in and play for 2015? Sean?
No, not yet, but I think you're inching closer to that period, but I don't think it's right now, no.
Ravi has not packed it in, but he has definitely panicked, right?
No, I'm packing it in.
You're packing it in.
Because I think at this point, you saw yesterday when the Cubs made that trade with Samardzija and Hamill, what you can get in return. I think it's time that you explore options on Lackey, Koji Uehara.
Why would you give up Lackey? What do you get? First of all, what do you get? This is a team. The Cubs are in a different position than the Red Sox are. Okay, the Cubs are in last place, and are not going to be not in last place next year, and they're building for the future. Theo Epstein is getting the ultimate free ride in Chicago, right? But they're building. All right, the Red Sox are expected to win every year, or at least be close by people, and Lackey's got it. Why would you give up your second best starting pitcher for something for future players who may or may not turn out, especially when he's going to make the major league minimum next year?
He won't play for it. There's no way he plays for it, Dave. He won't play for $500,000.
All right, so you pay him. I mean, why would you get rid of John Lackey? I don't get that. I mean, if you're making a trade and you get Giancarlo Stanton, which they're not going to, but if they get a big trade that's to reorder the team and Lackey goes in it, I can see that, right?
Can you seriously think, though, that this team, as constituted right now, with everybody coming back, can win more than 80 games next year? I don't see it happening.
No, they're going to have to do something. They'll probably sign free agents or make a trade or whatever it's going to be. Oh. They're going to have to, the one-year contract, it struck 12. It struck midnight, right, on the Johnny Gomeses and the Mike Carps and all those guys. They're not as good. As I said, we said last year, I never thought they were that good, but everything went right and they performed. More power to them. But the clock has struck 12, and those guys are back to what they were, right?
Here's my question though. What do you want to? What would you have so many holes right now though? There is a gaping hole at every position except for maybe second base and first.
Maybe second base.
I mean, you know what I mean, though. Pedroia's not going anywhere. Ortiz is on how many more years can he give you? 1 or 2?
Yeah. Well, I've got him signed for another year.
Yeah.
We have been saying Ortiz can only give you 1 or 2 for the past 4 or 5 years. So.
Right.
But I mean, what you're going to have a 40-year-old DH, Pedroia, and Napoli. That's your core.
Well, I mean, but you've got Bogarts. Where is Bogarts going to play?
Is Bogarts the real deal, though?
I don't know. You got to find that out. But, I mean, where are you going to play him? Is he a shortstop or is he a third baseman?
And that's my question. Now
the guys that I would move, if you think that it's done, okay, and by the end of the month they've got to make a decision, all right? J.D. Drew is tradable, right?
Steven
Drew. I trade J.D. too, but I mean Steven Drew is someone that you'd look to move. I'd consider moving Napoli, given his age and given the fact that he was a catcher. Okay. I don't know what you'd get for Gomes. I would consider Victorino. But there's certain guys, if you're looking at teams...
those 4 guys.
Right. Okay.
Napoli might be the only one you get anything.
Would you move Dubront?
Yes. I wanted to move him 2 years ago.
Okay. Peavy, you're not getting much for Peavy. He's won 1 game. It's
DFA,
mid-year.
like you said. I don't think him for assignment.
It looks like he's going to be that. So what do you do? Do you go young and do you Buchholz? Would you trade Buchholz?
Again, 2 years ago, a year ago, I was on board with trading Buchholz. So yeah. Again, I'm not sure how much you get for him now though. At this point, everyone knows he's injury prone.
They've waited too long. if that makes sense.
Yes, of course.
The
But look what
Red
happened with
Sox
Tim
have
Lincecum.
waited too long.
To
All right,
me,
fine.
I put Buckholz in the category of Lincecum. Same kind of guy, slight frame.
I think Lincecum had a higher high though.
But he had a
Higher peak.
Well, all I'm
He
saying
had a
is
lower low as well, though.
Right, but he hasn't been good, at least in the numbers the last couple. He's better
couple.
this year, but I mean,
Been a couple
they
no-hitters,
put him
but-
in the bull. They won the World Series and they put him in the bullpen. So how important could, and that's a good rotation, but how important could he have been to their plans? But they kept him because you need good pitchers.
Yeah, but they gave him, when he was up for a contract, they gave him a lot of money for 2 years.
right.
Because they knew his slighter frame, he's going to break down. They saw it coming.
Right.
The difference is his peak, he wasn't injured constantly. Buckholz's peak, he was constantly injured.
Every June he's on the disabled list. Every June he's been.
And that's and when Lincecum was at his peak, he was winning Cy Young awards because he was pitching 30
See,
games
from
a
my
year.
standpoint, if you're going to move Lackey, why not move Lester? They're not going to re-sign him. Wouldn't that bring something back?
I don't know, would it? Knowing
Are
that
they
he's
going to
going test
re-sign
free agency?
Lester?
Yes, that's what they want to do. So re-sign Lester.
But they're giving him. But they're look.
going
The
to give him
market.
way
The
too much
market
money.
says.
But yes, they
look.
will.
I would not give him 8 years. I'm sorry. I wouldn't do it. Clayton Kershaw. How old is he? He's 25, right?
Yes.
Okay, 8 years. That's a risk. You just said it before. Sabathia. They have 4 more years with Sabathia, and he's done, or maybe not done, but
Close to done.
he's trending down. He was a 500 pitcher with a high 4
Not just a
ERA last
trend.
year.
Yeah.
He's a 6 this year till he got it, and he has a degenerative injury to his knee that's only going to get worse.
Oh,
not to mention
not just a trend.
what's that?
It's not just a trend. He's diving
Well,
downward in his career.
at best, he's trending down.
Right.
All right. So, and they got three years left. I think they've got after this year. That's gigantic money. So, I don't know that I could give Lester an 8-year deal. And if I can't, they should make that decision now.
Well, the
they should
question
say to
is-
John. They should say to Lester and his agent, "Are you going to take 5 years? And what would it take for 5 years?" If he says we're not taking 5 years, we're going to the market to get 7 or 8. Then they trade him, don't they? If they're out of it.
But he's going to go to the market to get 7 or 8. So if you trade him, what team is going to say, "Yeah, let me give you something for a 3-month rental"?
If he can pitch like he did in the playoffs, and you're a team the A's. What did the A's just give up?
Yeah, but
Samardzija
Samardzija
has one
he's not
more
going to
year.
free
He's got
agency
one
next year.
He's already said he wants a max deal. He wants a deal to maximize what he's going to get. He's got one more year, and Jason Hamill is done at the end of this year.
Yeah, I knew Hamill was.
So they gave up a lot. So if you can get one of those guys, say you're trading him to the Nationals, for instance, who have a good farm system and are on the cusp, behind the Braves, does Lester put them over the top, which is exactly what the A's did? All I'm saying is the Red Sox, if they're going to make a decision, who's going to bring the most if they're going to dismantle the team? The guys that they're going to lose.
But
out
again,
of the
it's
guys
the same
they've got,
point
right?
you made to Ravi was you don't know what you're getting from this trade.
Yeah, true, but if you're unwilling to go 8 years, and Lester says I'm not signing until I know that someone's not giving me 8 years, you got to make. Are you going to roll the dice with that, like they did with Ellsbury, or are you going to say, all right, here's the decision, you got to make it. We're not giving him 8 years. He's gone.
Yeah, I mean, look, I agree. Giving 8
all
years
I'm
to
saying.
anybody at age 30 is ridiculous and has clearly not worked. However, with all of that said, the question for you or for the general management is going into next season and the following 3, who's going to be your number 1? And if you don't have one, are you content with what you do have?
I understand. All I'm saying is if they are unwilling to do it, then they should trade him. If they think they are going to do it and they're just lowballing, that's stupid because that never works out. They should sign. Either they should sign him or they should trade him. That's all I'm saying by the end of the month. That's one or the other, right?
Yes.
Because if they're not going to give him 8 years, next year, no matter how good he is now, they're not going to have him.
And I do think that in the end, they're going to sign him for way too much money, and it's going to end up being like a Beckett type contract where it looked all right at first, it looked all right the first year or two, and then it just tanked afterward.
Or
That's
maybe
what I'm
3
worried
years.
about.
And then you're hamstrung and you're in the back, same position they were with Crawford, Beckett, and Gonzalez.
Yep.
Right?
Exactly.
And that's
And how much? What
my
is
concern.
Crawford doing? He's on the disabled list again, right? In Los Angeles. Talk about not being able to handle the weight of the contract. But so would they be better off putting De La Rosa and Workman? He looked good in his last outing, didn't he? In the rotation and just moving PV
That was the
out,
first time
and
he
they
didn't
moved
look good.
Dubront out and just go.
That's my point. What's the worst thing? Let's just, I don't see what the problem is as a Red Sox fan. What's the problem with that? What is the problem with that? Just
Because
let's
they got a chance to go from worst to first to worst.
Telling you it's going to happen.
Has anybody ever done that?
I don't know.
I don't think so.
That's one of the questions I ask you.
The Giants.
Worst to- the only-
I
the
felt
only-
like the Giants did it last year, right?
No. They
Were
were in it till didn't play as well, but
All right.
no. And they've won 2 of the last 3. All right, we're going to go to Major League Baseball in a second. But Dan Shaughnessy had a big stat. In yesterday's column, he's in his picked up pieces. He's keep pounding. He's. I don't know if he's trying to make himself sound like a tough guy because John Henry owns the team, and no one, they're not going to, interfere with our journalistic integrity. It wasn't the story about Jared Remy done by the Globe that took Jerry Remy to task in
Yes.
it and made him look bad.
Yes, it was.
Wasn't that the first test of what journalism is going to be under John Henry?
I
Because
would
doesn't
imagine
that make the Red Sox broadcast and Nesson look bad in
Yep.
some way, shape, or form?
Yep.
Or certainly doesn't make them look good. So I thought that was the first test. That was a hard hitting story. So I don't think
Wild
so.
one,
Anyway,
too.
Shaughnessy's the Red Sox, and this is a guy less than 30 days after they won the World Series out of nowhere was calling the management fat and happy. So there's an agenda there, right? You think?
It seems so,
He
yes.
He hates the owners? All right, but now he's saying 5 out of 6 years the Red Sox are going to go on without winning a playoff game, which is a little bit misleading because they were in the playoffs. They got swept by the Angels in 2010.
Yep.
10.
Yeah, so, and they won the World Series last year. Forgets to mention that. But what's the more important statistic? that they haven't won a playoff game in 5 of the last 6 years? Or that they've won 3 World Series in 11 years when Tom Yawkey, who somehow was sainted, even though he was a racist, and 0-33, his wife and John Harrington and the others that follow were 0-32, and Harry Frazee, in addition to
Babe Ruth.
trading 5 Hall of Fame pitchers to the Yankees, by the way, including Babe Ruth, was 0-12 or whatever it was. But when they won, after they won in 1918.
Yeah. After they sold.
So what's the more important statistic? You're trying to bash management. What's the more important statistic to the fans?
No, well, if you don't want to ask local fans, go down to New York and ask Giants fans what their most important, having won the 2 Super Bowls, or just before that, not making the playoffs and missing right after they
Playing completely
won
under
as
their
well.
level of talent.
Right. So
It's not like the Red Sox aren't
go
spending.
outside of this area and ask what those fans think.
Even though they don't have long-term contracts, they still got a gigantic payroll, right?
Yeah, look, it's not like the effort isn't there when it comes to upper management and willing to spend money. Are they willing to spend as much as the Yankees? No, but they're consistently in the top 4, even 2 in spending.
Right. So I don't know. That's just why I asked the question isn't unfair. He's pushing an agenda that he's got an anti-management thing for some reason. It's just how he is. I mean, it's even worse. It's worse with the Crafts, right?
Yes.
I mean, I think in his case, he's saying this week that Bill Parcells is the most important person in Patriot history, which is baloney.
top 5, I'll give him.
Yeah, I think I'm not taking anything away from Parcells, all right? Parcells changed the culture in the way Kevin Garnett changed the culture. Patriots were awful when they got there. He made them a professional organization. He put them on the path. They were in the Super Bowl in 4 years. He did a tremendous job. And then he was also a bully. He was arrogant to the ownership of the team, and he left in the worst possible way, right? Mm-hmm. Makes Jason Kidd look like Mother Teresa, right? So now, having said that, even if you want to talk about how he changed the culture, made people care about football around here, I don't see how he's more important than Brady, is he?
Brady, Belichick, and Kraft all ahead of him.
Kraft more so because he held the case is made that they'd be in St. Louis if Parcells was here. Robert Orthline would have changed. James Orthline would have moved them to St. Louis because he wanted to, but that's not why. Bob Kraft held the lease on the stadium before he owned the team, and he couldn't move them. So they're here. And by the way, Billy Sullivan is ahead of Bob Kraft and ahead of Parcells, because if there's no Billy Sullivan holding things together when the whole thing got started, even with all the wackiness that went on with the Sullivans, with him, he's important.
Yeah.
More important.
I think it's a good
I
point.
agree with that.
I'd give Parcells fifth in history.
Still top
So,
5.
All right, but not. Yes, that is top 5, at least by my math. All right, we're going to blow off the rest of the baseball segment, come back, talk about basketball when we return.
Play ball! Gee!